In today's video, we're going to turn this guy into this guy into this guy. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to my channel. So in this video, we are going to be repotting and propagating my Ficus Elasticas, also known as a rubber tree. For those of you guys who's been following me on Instagram, you know how much I love my Ficus Elasticas. They are one of my favorite type of houseplants I do own right now, and that's because they're thriving really well. I do have these guys in the corner of my bedroom getting a lot of south-facing indirect bright light and sometimes a couple hours of direct morning sun. I did do a lot of care tip videos on my Ficus Elastica last year, so I'll definitely link a card. So right now I have three different type of Ficus Elasticas. I have a Burgundy, a Ruby, and a Tineke, and for the most part I care for these guys exactly the same way. Although I would say that my favorite out of these three is probably the Tineke. I mean, look at this guy. Ta-da! Look how massive he's gotten in the last couple of years, and the leaves are huge, and the variegation on this one is literally like watercolored paint has been splattered on him. Truly a beautiful plant, and like I said, very easy to care for in my opinion. But we're going to definitely repot this guy because I've had him for about 2 years now in the same container. And we're also going to be repotting the Burgundy. We're not going to do the Ruby because I did recently repot this guy just the end of last fall because he was extremely root bound. But I know for a fact that this guy needs to be repotted. Here with the Burgundy, you guys can see that it is not like the Tineke where there's only one main stem growing like a tree-like shape. This is more like a bush, and he's got maybe about 4 different stems going on right now. So we want to do a bit of separation because I know this guy is extremely root bound as well. And then we're going to take one of these stems and use it to show you guys how to cut and propagate them so you can make a lot more plants. So how often should you repot your Ficus Elastica, and how do you know when to repot? So I would always recommend to repot your Ficus Elastica maybe once every 2 years. It really does depend slightly on how fast they're growing and the size of the container. So for example, this Ficus Elastica I've had in this container for almost 2 years now, and he's definitely due for a repot because I can literally see the roots starting to show at the top of the soil. In addition, this guy tends to dry up pretty quickly, unlike before when I can get away with like watering this guy maybe every 2 to 3 weeks. Now it seems like it's every week and a half. Also, I can tell that with the new leaves that's starting to show up, it tends to be a lot smaller than say what you see here in the Ruby. Look how big this one is in the Ruby. So those are usually signs that your plant needs to be repotted. And I know that when we lift this guy out of the container, I can tell you right now, see, watch, I'll show you. I can lift it because you guys can see right there, the roots are starting to circle up. So definitely should be, repotted. And because I do want this guy, especially now, with the growing season ahead of us, is I want this guy to grow a little bit taller, and then next year we're gonna cut this guy and get it to branch out, so that way it can look more like my Ficus Altissima that you guys see here, which is more like a tree shape. But yeah, so we're definitely going to repot this guy, and then we're gonna repot the Burgundy. So why don't we go ahead and do that now? Alright guys, so what we first want to do is try and remove the old soil from the plant and try and loosen up these roots as gently as we can. I'm gonna use my hands for the most part, but sometimes I might use like a chopstick to try and get in there, but I think this is going to be fairly easy. So let's go ahead and do this and try and see what we can do with just our hands right now. Alright guys, so I did as best as I could to try and remove as much dirt as possible without damaging the roots. And technically you don't have to remove all of the old soil, as long as you can kind of just loosen them up a bit, so that way when you do repot them, that the roots can kind of start going outside of what they were used to and get a bit more of the newer soil. But so this is what we have right now, and what we're going to do is actually put it in this container. So it's not that much more different than the one I'm using. The only difference with this one is the width is about the same, so this is probably about like 12 inches, except this is deeper, so it will allow the roots to kind of grow a bit more down and promote more growth as this guy continues to grow taller. So I've already put my soil mix in here, and typically the soil mix I will use for my Ficus Elastica, which is pretty much for the most of my plants, I use this type of soil mix. It's kind of my go-to. It is 50% regular potting mix and 50% cacti soil, and then add a handful of like perlite for extra drainage, because I do like my ficuses to have well-draining soil, and I think that's one of the reasons why they thrive really well. It is one of my secrets when it comes to caring for these guys, is make sure that when you water these guys that the water drains through, and in order to do that, you obviously need to have kind of well drainage type of soil. So I think I'm gonna add a bit more soil in here so that way you can sit a little bit higher. So let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, this is better. I like this guy better. Okay, so now we're just going to top it up with some more of my soil mix, and then water this guy, and should be good to go. Really excited to have this guy actually grow a little bit taller this growing season. And then next growing season, we're going to cut the top of this and get it to branch out, so that way it can grow into like a tree, which I'm very excited about. So, man, I've had this ficus for just almost 2 years. I think I got it like July of 2018. Found it at Home Depot. And I was really impressed at, first of all, finding this guy at Home Depot. But you know what? Home Depot will surprise you. I do find that some of my best plants come from like big box stores. But yeah, so there you guys have it. After obviously repotting, what you want to do is water this guy a bit, so that way the soil, the new soil, and the roots can kind of merge well together. But yeah, so now let's move on to the Burgundy. That one's going to be a bit tricky, and I'll show you guys why. All right, guys, so here we have the Burgundy, and as you can see, this is more like a bush type of Ficus Elastica, unlike the other two, which is more of a one stem tree approach. And this one definitely needs to be repotted, because if you want your Ficus Elastica to grow like more of a tree shape, you definitely want them to be like a single stem in one pot. This has like 4 in one pot, and it probably has like 4 individual root system. And in addition, as I mentioned, these guys right here, the new leaves, that's like typically will start growing after the new leaf kind of unfurls. There's already one showing up. This is smaller than what they should be, especially around this time of the year. They should be a little bit bigger, because the leaves are normally supposed to be bigger than the previous leaf, right? But they tend to be smaller, so definitely needs to be repotted. And the thickness of the branch here, it's pretty thick now. So let's go ahead and remove this guy from the container, remove the old soil, and see what we got going on underneath there. All right, guys, so here's the Burgundy, and as I expected, it was going to be a challenge to try and loosen up the soil and try and separate these guys, because it looks like it has one root system now. They've all kind of just merged together. So it's going to be difficult to you know, separate these guys without damaging the roots, and I don't want to risk doing that. So what we're just going to do is we're actually going to just plant this guy into a way bigger pot, similar size to the one we did at the Tineke, and that will allow this guy to grow a little bit better, allow the roots to grow down, and as well as spread out a bit, and hopefully it will continue to grow taller and wider. And I guess we're just going to have like a really big bush type of Ficus Elastica, which I don't mind, because it gives me a bit of variety in terms of like styling. You know, I have 2 that's kind of straight up into a single stem, and this will remain into like a bush type of plant. But yeah, so we're going to get that container, and then we're going to pot this guy, and then we'll take one of these main stems right now. We'll just cut it, and we'll use this to kind of show you guys how I propagate and start a whole new plant. So again, I'm using a similar soil mix, which is 50% regular potting mix and 50% cacti soil with a handful of perlite. So we're going to get this guy to sit a little higher, so that way it allows more room for the roots to grow down. So maybe add a bit more here. Yeah, that's perfect. There we go. Okay. So now we're just going to top up with soil and water this guy, and should be good. And then I might actually have these guys outside this summer, so that way, like I said, these guys love a lot of bright light and even a few hours of direct sunlight, and they thrive really well in my south-facing window there right in the corner. So I might have these guys outside in the summer and see how big they can grow this season. Guys, so I finished repotting the Ficus Tineke and the Burgundy, and we're just going to water them a bit, and then we're going to propagate and show you guys the cutting here. All right, guys, so now that we finished repotting, we are going to now propagate one of these branches from the Burgundy. So I'm going to take this small one right now, which you guys see right here, and I'm just going to cut as close to the bottom as possible using a sharp scissors. Alright guys, so here is our branch, and what will usually happen after you cut these guys is there's these white sap that will come out of the branch, and you just want to kind of get a paper towel to kind of just dry that out. But what you want to do is kind of create ½ an inch below the leaf, or an inch, and ½ an inch above the leaf, and kind of create that little branch that you'll then submerge in water, and that's where the roots are going to come out. So what we want to do here is, for example, there's about like an inch there, so we just want to cut that off. And then we want to cut above the leaf as well. and right there. So that will then be submerged in water, and that's where the roots will come out. So you guys can see all these white stuff that's coming out. Again, that's the sap. So we're just gonna do this side. The leaves here are a little closer, so I think what I want to do is I just want to cut just above the second leaf right there. That way it has 2 leaves, and then this one again you just want to do right here. And then at the top here, what I'll usually do is I'll just leave it like this, but I'll remove kind of the bottom leaf. That way it has more of this branch that will be submerged in water. So, all right guys, now that you have your cuttings, what you want to do is get your propagation station, and you want to make sure you submerge these guys in water, definitely making sure that that branch is always in water, because that's where the roots are going to come from. Next, you want to place these guys in an area that gets a lot of bright light. I always recommend a south facing window, but east or west should be okay. And then what you want to keep an eye on is just make sure that that water is always topped up, that that branch is not exposed to air, because that's where the roots are going to grow from. I don't put any root hormone to kind of promote the growth, but what I did do is I actually added a couple of my pothos cuttings that already has roots into it, and that actually helps speed up the growth of the roots from the on the Ficus Elastica. By the way, I did also do a repotting and propagation of my pothos, so I'll definitely link a card there so you guys can check that out. Yeah, I added a couple of these guys, and within a couple weeks I started to see you know, roots start to grow from the branch of the Ficus Elastica, and within a month you're going to have a healthy root system like you see here. Ta-da! As you guys can see here, this has a healthy root system. So this has been in water for about 6 to 8 weeks now, I can't remember, but this one is about 2 inches long, and then this root is about 1 inch long. So I always recommend to make sure that your roots are at least 1.5 inches to 2 inches long before transplanting them into soil, because you want to give this guy a shot at thriving and really growing into a plant like this guy. So I have here a 4-inch container using the same soil mix as I used for the repotting, and I just want to top it up a bit there, and then place a hole and make sure all these roots are you know, submerged under there, and then you want to just cover this guy up. Now, it's okay if you cover this top up with more soil just to you know, keep this guy in place. Eventually that new leaf will, you know, grow through the soil, so I'm not too worried about it. And yeah, and again, place this guy in a bright area that gets a lot of light, south facing if you have it. And what you want to do is leave this leaf as long as possible, because in a couple of weeks what's going to happen is you're going to get a new leaf, and then a new leaf, and eventually this will then start kind of creating that ficus plant. So really excited about that. The question I get is, when should you remove the original leaf that was part of the cutting? And my recommendation is don't remove it at all. So leave it like this for a while. And the reason being is because this is what's going to capture the sun's energy and obviously flow it through the rest of the root system and the plant, and then promote that growth. So if you remove this, it definitely has no you know, a way to kind of capture that energy, and the growth will be a lot slower. So definitely make sure you keep this. So I'm going to keep this leaf here for a while until this is probably a bit bigger, or almost the same size as this one, and then from there you can remove it, and then this will be kind of your plant. But yeah, that is how easy it is to not only take care of these guys, repot them, but also now propagate them. And I'm so happy because obviously propagating plants you can give to your friends or family, or you can keep it all for yourself, but really up to you. Other than that, hopefully you guys enjoy this little you know, repotting and propagating of the Ficus Elastica. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you guys soon. Peace.